to take some of your time this morning. We're super grateful. We know that it's still a busy market out there and you guys are working hard to get the deals in. So thank you for your time and allowing us to connect here. I'm going to start out and just kind of overview my background a bit. I've got 22 years in title and business development. And I think the thing that keeps me going are the relationships with lenders and realtors over the years. I really want to add value to your business and help you grow your business. So when I was recruited to Steward about 6 years ago, I said, "What do you have for me before I choose to come over to Steward?" And they said, "Well, we've got lots of things. We're a national underwriter. We've got lots of really cool things like remote online notary for people that are maybe in the military or rural. We've got Homes for Hero discounts. We've got interpreters at the closing table to accommodate 300 languages, including sign language. Lots of really cool things here at Stewart. And, we've been around about 130 years. So we are one of the largest title underwriters nationwide. And so I'm proud that we are a strong and credible company with an A rating. Even in the tricky market we've had for the last couple of years, we still have maintained that A rating. And I believe we've got about 7,000 employees globally with Stewart Title. If you can believe that, 7,000 employees, that's a lot. But no matter if you have local transactions or national transactions, we are here to assist. And the other thing that was really important to me is coming to Stewart. I wanted to make sure that we had really strong escrow teams. And of course, we're like super blessed with that. All the different escrow teams that are Stewart offices across the metro offer anywhere from 20 to 30 years of experience. And that is a huge asset, especially if you're a new realtor coming in and you need a strong title partner to know what they're talking about. Same with lenders that are very experienced. You need kind of a really strong lender too when you are a new realtor coming in. But also even very seasoned realtors, it's really nice to have somebody to bounce different topics back and forth on with your escrow officer. Jules Setter, who's going to be the presenter today, she also offers like 22 to 25 years of title expertise in her role as an escrow officer. And we've got so many wonderful relationships with National Realty Guild realtors over the years. And we're super blessed to work with many of you. So we're very thankful. For me, one of the things that I can help you with is what's important to me is trying to help you find new business. And that was something that I wanted to make sure that Stewart had for me when I joined about 6 years ago. And they said, yep, we do have some very cool lead generation and farming resources. So for about 5 years, I've been creating custom lead lists for realtors and loan officers to help you find homeowners and renters that most match your target market. And to be RESPA compliant with the state of Minnesota, we do have to charge a fee for that, which is no more than $30 for a lead list up to 1,000. And depending on what service you go through with me, one of the services does provide phone numbers scrubbed against a do not call list. And I think you have like a 30-day grace period to make all those phone calls. So anyway, if you connect with me after this and you're interested in just learning more about the lead generation, you can reach out to me anytime. I love helping realtors and loan officers with this. And just so you know, they are not live leads. If they were live leads, they'd be way more expensive. But these are people through parameters and algorithms out there that can find renters and homeowners that most match your target market, anywhere from geographical up to 25 zip codes. Basically income range, marital status, ethnicity, language, lots of different people, age range. If you're looking for first time home buyers that may be renting in a part of the metro that is your sphere, lots of really cool things that I can search for with that. But anyway, just to recap on some of the services here again, remote online notary, that's very popular for rural, maybe people in the military. Remote online notary and electronic signings are very popular. We do have certified, which is wire fraud protection up to 2 million. And we did just increase that earlier in the year because a lot of people are finding that wires are more than 1 million. So we decided as a company to increase that wire fraud protection up to 2 million so that if you do have a closing with Stewart Title and you chose us for title, say a fraudster comes in and tries to grab a $75,000 wire, well, if they went through Steward and the certified process, you don't have to worry about them losing their nest egg, and you can be the hero for choosing Steward to do your closing with your customer. So that's Jules is always an expert in talking more about the wire fraud stuff. But the interpreter service has been very popular too. We've had a lot of sign language closings, Spanish closings, Hmong closings, a lot of different, Minnesota is very diverse. And we want to make sure that we have the capabilities. If you have a client that needs interpreter services at the closing table, the fee is $100. But if they're hearing impaired and need a sign language, there's no fee for that because it's considered a disability. But if you ever need a sign language interpreter at the closing, or excuse me, an interpreter at the closing table, you can connect with Jules and Sonia, the escrow team that most work with National Realty Guild, and they could set that up at the closing table. And sometimes people that are bilingual say, well, I don't really need an interpreter. But to be honest, it's kind of nice to have a third party, representing everybody kind of unbiased, at the closing table. So that is always an option for you. And then one other thing for me that I can assist with besides the lead generation and custom lead lists for renters and homeowners, I can also provide you access to our website, which some people really appreciate because you can, with any first title order with Steward, you have access to our website, which is called stewardnow.com. And if you don't already have access, I can help you with that. But you can track all your orders with Steward live time 24/7 like a pizza tracker. So even if it's like a Friday night at 10 o'clock and you really want to see your title or what's going on with your transaction, you can actually log in on your mobile device or your desktop and find out where your file's at. So leading into Jules, Jelaine, her name is Jelaine Setter and she goes by Jules. And if you ever have title scenarios or new title requests or fee quotes that you're looking for, Jules can always assist you. And she has somebody on her team, Sonia Brown. They've been working together for about 22 to 25 years. They make an amazing team. They're really smart and people that you can count on. And they will always be happy to be a go-to just to bounce off different scenarios. And if you do choose us for title, they are really amazing, guiding your client through the process from beginning to end, because we know how important it is for you to have a very good experience throughout with your clients, because that's referral business for you guys, is to have a really smart and knowledgeable title company at the closing table that is happy when they need to be for the first-time home buyers, and also, professional with all different scenarios, because we're in a time frame where it's life changes that are happening, divorce, death, all these different things, getting married, all the different life changes. That's what's opening up our inventory. So trust me, Jules and Sonia are very amazing at working with your clients, getting what they need so that you can get your closing taken care of at the closing table and throughout the process. So I'm going to hand it over to Jules. She is one of the smartest and kindest people I know. So I'm going to lead it over to you, Jules, and I'm going to mute myself. And reach out anytime. We're happy to assist. I see Jules is muted. Oh, there we go. Here she is. Jules got a new computer 3 weeks ago, so that's why she's having an issue with being
the
computer. So is it working for you? I heard you bit earlier. You are cutting out, Jules. Jules, can you hear me? Technology, I tell you. I'm sorry about this. Bear with us for a couple of minutes here with Jules getting situated. While she's working on that, does anybody have any immediate questions for me regarding lead generation or access to the website or any of our services? If you do, you can interject at any time.
And also you can put them in the chat if you have
There
a
you go.
question.
Perfect. I'm going to mute myself and for one moment and connect
You
with
want to give her a
Jules.
call?
Yeah, I'm going to do that real quick.
In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen, and I just want to talk a little bit about all of the upcoming meetings that we have going on. Let me see here. Oh, there comes somebody else. Okay, just 1 minute, and I'll try to share my screen. There we go. Oh, Jules just came back on, so maybe we'll do that at the end. There she goes. I see a camera at least. Maybe she's getting close.
All right. I don't see my cameras working yet. I don't know what is going on, but
Might
that's
have
okay.
something to
We
do with
can.
your phone. I had trouble with mine too, but I had to scan something on my phone.
So weird. I don't know why this is happening on here. It kind of doesn't. I got a new computer a little while ago, and
Well,
it just hasn't been.
it might be our Zoom meeting. The workplace is a little different than a regular Zoom because I've had trouble myself. So,
So weird. All right. Well, anyway, we'll march on. It's fine. You don't need. You guys know
oh,
what I look like.
Jeff just said you need Windows 11 permissions for the camera. Thank you, Jeff.
Sure. That could take
You
me
know how
all
to do
day.
that, Jeff? You
I
wanna
say
unmute
I
yourself,
say we
Jeff.
wing it, Jules. I say you just
We're
go
gonna wing it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my theory.
There you go.
So and everybody, if you have questions or whatever, just dive in with the questions. I did change browsers, which is helping me because it was lagging before, and that was weird too. So what I was talking about today is just things that are tripping people up and causing not so great results. And I do wish I had my camera right now because some of these are purchase agreement specific, and they all revolve around that whole deal with the sellers and the lawsuit and the whatever. And I don't know if you guys have run into other agents, because I know you guys at NRG, you know what's going on with that whole lawsuit. And there's the thing on the purchase agreement, line 406, and you just put it on there and whatever. But it does seem to be tripping people up, and it's a lot of times it's tripping up even more seasoned agents, because the agent that they're dealing with comes back and says, oh my gosh, we can't do that, the lawsuit, and you have to pay the broker, and it's this whole thing. And realistically, in Minnesota, it hasn't really changed anything. But I wanted to tell you about a couple of things that I've run into in the past probably about 6 months. And one of them too is just making sure that you are looking at what you're sending out. And I know you guys know to do that, but people get busy, and it's always rush, rush, rush. And we need to have that deal. We've got to get that out to them, and they need we need to get that back to the other agent and everything else. So a couple of things that I've run into recently. One of them was an agent that didn't realize that they had, the agents, obviously you guys speak amongst, each other about what kind of a deal is going to happen and whatever. But somehow a purchase agreement got sent out that had seller pays on it, like 3% seller pays on it. And the listing agent didn't notice it. And it's what everybody signed. So when I went out, and it happened to be it was kind of a weird situation because it was a relocation. The listing agent knew the sellers, and that's how they got involved in this whole thing. But the sellers were using a relocation company through their company. They were being relocated by their employer. So the relocation company actually signed the purchase agreement for the people, which is the process. So when the final numbers came out, all of a sudden, like the listing agent calls me because I was representing the listing agent, or the relocation company, as the seller. And I also was representing the buyers as well. And the gal on the listing side called me and said, what is the seller paid? There's no seller pays on here. And I said, well, the purchase agreement does have seller pays. And she was like, oh my gosh, send that to me. And I sent it out to her, and she said that was the wrong one, was sent out for signing. In the meantime, I'm talking to the selling agent, who says, yeah, that wasn't the right one that was sent out. That wasn't the intent, right? But now the bank thinks that there's seller pays and everybody thinks there's seller pays. In the meantime, the buyer's uncle, who's a real estate agent in Florida, gets involved and says, it doesn't matter what the intent was, this is what was signed. So long story short, it ended up being that the seller pays went through because the relocation company said we have to pay them. And the other side said we're kind of not really willing to give them up because that's what was signed, even though we didn't really know that we were getting them. So that was one where, the agent just didn't realize that that's what had gone out. And actually, truthfully, neither one of them did until farther into the process on that. But I also had one that came up recently where we got some documentation and the buyers, they were going to pay the 2.7% and to the buy side. And then they said, no, we're not going to pay the 2.7% to the buy side. And got amendments and addendums and some sort of a clear to close. You guys know, some of the agents use those clear to close things and they write down everything. And at the bottom, it tells you if there's information, if there's a broker admin fee or seller pays or whatever. It had an arrow saying something about buyer, broker, something. And the amendment that came through and what the intent was that the seller wasn't going to pay the 2.7% to the buyer's broker anymore. Wasn't going to pay any commission to the buy side. The amendment came through in the purchase agreement. Seller's contribution to the buyer's broker contribution agrees to pay 0% or of the selling percent or 0%, which is in addition to any seller contribution to the buyer's closing costs paid at this closing. This is in addition to the listing. I'm like, what? It'd be easier, shorter, sweeter. I think when you're doing these things, what trips people up sometimes is that they want to put too much information on these amendments. The less I think is more, because that's kind of what ends up tripping people up is they start to put more words in there and then it's not, it turns into something that, we have to obviously follow because it's the what is signed, but it's not clear to anyone what the real intent on that is. But the worst case scenario of kind of not paying attention to what's going on is one that I ran into probably like three months ago. And it all stemmed from that whole seller lawsuit situation, people being paranoid about not doing it right, not reflecting it correctly. And you guys know that there's that 406 line is on there now. Just put your if the seller's going to pay any buyer's broker compensation or buyer compensation on that, put it on there. Because what ended up happening on this particular case is that the 2.7 was on line 406, which is great, which is exactly where it should be. That's what needed to happen. But somehow in the mix, and I don't know if it was my selling agent that got confused about it, or the listing agent, or actually my listing agent that got confused about it, or the selling agent that didn't want it reflected that way because they were afraid of this lawsuit situation and not doing it right and all this stuff. Somehow that then got translated over into closing costs, seller contributed closing costs, 2.7%. And the intent was really that no, the seller's not going to pay because of this whole lawsuit. The buyer needs to pay their own. And but we're going to give them 2.7% seller contributed closing costs, which, okay. But what ended up happening was they never did an amendment that actually took off the 2.7 that was on line 406. And then they had an inspection, and in post inspection, the sellers agreed to contribute another 1.3% closing costs because there was some work. And so the sellers thought that they were going to actually be paying 4%, 2.7% closing costs in lieu of, the paying the broker, and the buyer's going to pay that on their own side. They were going to compensate for that. And then 1.3% because of the stuff that came up in the inspection or whatever the deal was. Well, how it ended up being, they never took that 2.7% off on line 406. So they then committed and everybody signed it, and that the agents, they didn't realize that, the listing agent didn't realize that he had missed the step of removing that 2.7 on line 406 and putting it onto the seller contributed closing costs. So when they did the seller contributed closing costs, obviously the next line should have been and removing, 2.7 on line 406 or however you wanted to put it on there. So it was a $600,000 house. And so the sellers ended up having to pay an additional 2.7% in closing costs, and then pay the 2.7% that they had agreed to on line 406 as well. And then they paid the additional 1.3% too, because at that point, the buyer's agent's like, no, this is what you was committed to. And so this is what we're doing. And I think, we're all, when we're busy, everybody's busy, and you're kind of not making sure that you get those pieces put together. Stuff like if things like that get missed, it can end up in a really bad result, because that was a whole thing. And I don't know where that's at in the mix of, I know I did have someone with some questions about how that did happen. And I feel like maybe there was a lawsuit in the works, is what I kind of got the feeling on for that. So just making sure that you're like watching, and what you're trying to put on those addendums makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish, and doesn't either, leave things out or add too much in there that you're going to get tripped up on. Some other sorts of things that are the things that can lead to a negative result is moving closings up. Talk about moving closings around and changing closing dates. Because the process is, and it's great if the lender can get things done early, and we certainly appreciate that, and obviously everybody wants that. They want to close earlier usually. But on the seller side, particularly if you're representing the buyer, you really don't know what's going on the seller side, right? You don't know if they have mortgages. You don't know. I mean, it's a wild card for everybody. That's on our side if we're representing the buyer. If the seller has payoffs, there are a few companies, Freedom Mortgage. So if you're ever doing a listing and you know that your people have a Freedom mortgage, just be aware that that is a 10-day turn to get a payoff from them. And the payoffs, obviously, we have to have them. So if you know that your people do actually have that as their mortgage company, you're going to want to, if people are asking to move that up, you're going to want to let your title person know, which hopefully would be me. I would love that. But whoever it is, you'd want to let them know right away that we're thinking about moving this up, and can you please get going on that payoff? And also HOAs. HOAs can be sticky, because there is one HOA management company that is in the Twin Cities area now, where if you want them to do the fast, pay the extra $150 for the fast service on the, you couldn't see my air quotes I was doing, obviously, since my camera's all jacked up, but the fast service on their HOA dues current letter, it's 10 days as well. So they won't do it in any less time than that, and that's their fast service. So just be aware, if we're talking about maybe moving things up, it could end up being a bad result if the lender gets all excited and they get all their stuff together, and then all of a sudden we go back to the seller, and the seller's like, this is Freedom, we're not going to have a payoff. Then the question becomes, can we close out the payoff? And the answer to that is no. That's never a good practice. Most title companies don't allow it anyway. It would only happen in a very extreme case for most title companies. And you just want to make sure that you are aware that there are other things that maybe even beyond the loan that are on the seller side that might have to be dealt with, because also you don't know if there's something comes up on a title commitment, it's an old loan, and the seller side title needs to actually clear that loan. There are some other factors that do factor in besides just what we usually see on the front end with the lender, because normally if there's shenanigan, it's usually lender stuff, right? And so another thing, if you're the listing agent, and just agents in general, so you're going to be either the listing agent or the selling agent, you guys are the face of the transaction, really. They don't usually know who the title company is. They don't really want to know who we are. They don't really care. They don't understand why we need to be involved. And even though you guys tell them, well, this is who they are, and this is what they do, and this is why they need to be involved, and this is what the deal is, they don't. That's not. They're focused on you. You are their person, right? You're their point of contact. So if you are a listing agent, the best thing that you can do is when you're talking to your people and you're doing your net sheets, here's another negative result thing that I have happening right now. As a matter of fact, something that's supposed to close in a couple of days here, but I'm representing the buyer, and the seller didn't tell their title company or their agent that they had done a forbearance. And now, for those of you guys that aren't kind of on point, don't know that whole situation. During COVID, obviously there was some government help for people so they could keep their houses if they weren't working. It's called a forbearance, but if you're talking to your people about like loans or liens that they have, and you're trying to do your seller net sheet, just say, did you do, during COVID, did you take advantage of any of the COVID programs that so that you could like not make your payments because, obviously your work was affected by COVID? Because most people don't understand like what a forbearance. If you tell them it's a forbearance, they're not gonna get that. They won't understand it. So the easier thing to do is say, hey, during COVID, you have mortgages. Did you, on any mortgage that you have currently during COVID, did you take advantage of any of those programs, the government programs where you could skip payments or not make payments for a certain amount of time? Because what we find is that a lot of people don't realize that has to be repaid. This particular situation, when they first came out with that forbearance situation, HUD was having Department of Housing and Urban Development, for people out there that don't know what that is, the government-backed loan situation. They were having them sign mortgages, actual mortgages for these forbearance things. So some of these things that are on the front end of that COVID forbearance, HUD has actually filed a mortgage. So this is exactly what's happening with this negative result file that I have going on right now that I don't know if it's going to close, because the seller forgot to tell her agent that she had done this forbearance. And it turns out it was $67,000. So the agent did the net sheet, not realizing there was a $67,000 loan out there that was going to need to be repaid at closing. So now, instead of her getting $40,000 back, she needs to bring $20,000 to closing. And so we don't know if it's even going to close at this point. I don't know if she can even, obviously I'm not representing her, I'm representing the buyer. So it's a problem, because now my buyer might not be able to close on this house because she might not be able to do this. So it's important for you guys to just, get that information from them. That is one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that I have seen in the past, since this whole COVID shenanigan. I would say 80% of the people are surprised when that stuff shows up. And it's only going to show up on, title if HUD made them do a mortgage. They had, I believe, a flow through later on to some of the big lenders where they didn't require that mortgage situation, but we would get a payoff, and we would see that there's like $22,000 of I can't remember what they call it on there, but there's like, multiple thousands of dollars worth of stuff on there that says deferred interest or something like that. And then the question gets asked of the sellers, did you do like this forbearance situation? And they're like, yeah, we did. We didn't make our payments for like a year, 8 months or whatever. They're unaware. And the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't show up on like the dashboard for the lenders. So the people will go, hey, I've had it for my own sellers where they didn't realize that was the situation. And they're like, hey, my dashboard says that I only owe, like, my principal is, call it $200,000. Why is my payoff $222,000? Well, they did a forbearance. They didn't make payments. That all accrued on the back end, and it gets collected. And they were unaware that they had to pay that back. So that's why it's important for you guys to actually ask that question, because when you're doing your net sheet, that can seriously skew your net sheet. I mean, that's like a $20,000 swing is bad. A $67,000 swing is like catastrophic at this point. We don't know what's going to happen. But that's one of the things that you guys want to note when you're, talking to your people, because you are the face, right? And they will, even though we ask the questions, sometimes they're like, why does the title person need to know that? And then they're a little whatever. There's a seller information sheet that we as title companies all send out once we get a seller side file. So if you guys as the listing agents could tell them, hey, once you get that, please fill that out right away, because we don't even know what we're dealing with until we get their information back too. We'll get a title commitment, and that'll show us some things, but we won't know if we have a freedom mortgage that we're going to have a problem. It's going to be a long turn to get their whatever. With that kind of information, the faster we can get going to start assembling the information, the easier it would be if your people if the buy side wants to push the closing up or the sellers want to push the closing up, and the buy side's like, fine, we can do that. If title doesn't have that information as quickly as possible, we're not going to be able to get started working on it, and that's going to be the hold up for the file, because there's certain things that we do that we can't get around. Also, letting them know if they have an HOA that they will have to do a dues current letter as well. That's a question we get all the time. I already paid that. I already paid for those association documents. They paid for the resale disclosures, obviously, that have to go out to the buyers ahead of time. But an HOA dues current letter is also required. And one of the big reasons for that is usually there's at least 4 weeks between the time that that purchase agreement comes in and those documents are given to the buyer, to review. And if they take their full 10 days to review them, you have to factor that in for your closing date and whatever. I mean, some will actually say, no, I'll waive that down to 3 or whatever. But basically, by the time even if that resale disclosure does contain some information about dues, they're old. It's a dues current letter. We have to have something that shows where they're at right now. And another reason, even if it's a quicker close, another reason that we are required to get a dues current letter, all title companies are, is because sometimes if like a new assessment has happened in between there, or they've a new pending, we'll get a little note on there. Oh, now this roof thing has popped back up that happened 4 years ago. It's not on the resale stuff because it's been in limbo, but now all of a sudden it pops up on the dues current letter. So that's why it's expensive. We all know it. It's a bummer, kind of a racket, but it is what it is. They're going to have to pay for 2. On the buy side, just making sure that your buyers are aware that their funds need to be, if they're bringing a check, they obviously have to bring it to closing. If they are bringing if they're sending a wire, that should be sent out at least 24 hours prior to the date of closing, if not longer. I know like Navy Federal, it takes them a longer time. They usually have like a 48-hour turn. Certain lenders have different turn times. They do have to be either wires or checks, pretty much across the board for all title companies. You probably will get questions about this. Particularly if you do a lot of first-time home buyers, because the younger people, they're used to doing this whole ACHing things, which is different than a wire. That's a direct transfer. Title companies at this point don't accept ACHs. Usually, there's a whole thing about laundering money with buying houses, and there's a whole thing with that, and you have to have a more secured process. I know that Steward, actually nationally, we are trying to roll out a process where people can ACH at least their certain parts of it, or even all of their cash to closing. It's been rolled out. It's in a trial run out in our Seattle area. So hopefully, we're hoping within maybe by middle of next year, we will have the ability to have people be able to send that through ACH, because most of the time they can do that themselves. But that's one of the reasons that like banks aren't really too excited about that, and there has to be a very specific legal process where they're to make sure that they're not sending it to some weird place that getting scammed out of their money. So that's another thing that you guys as selling agents working with buyers can help your title company people out with, because it's kind of a weird phenomena that they don't really listen to their title company people. It's on all of the stuff we send them and whatever. And we'll have people that will show up with their computer at the closing and say, oh, I'm planning to wire mine from the table here. It's like, well, no, the money has to be here, when you're buying the house, because you're not going to go to Target and like go, oh, I'm going to take these shoes, but I'll wire you some money and you'll get it in like 4 hours. That's kind of not a thing, right? It's, they do have to have the money here. So that's, that can lead to some shenanigan as well and kind of gum up your process. And one of the other things that can lead to negative results or um, gum up the works, as it were, is listening to title regarding timing. We have, a lot of times, like the lenders will get really excited and they'll be like, oh, we can get this done, or they'll tell the loan officer will tell the you guys as the agent, yep, we can absolutely get this done. We can get it done early. We can do this. We can do that. They can sign online, everything online. And then, we as the title company have to tell you, the agent who's excited about this whole thing, we got to pump the brakes here. We need to make sure that their underwriting is okay with that. Because there's a lot of loan officers that are still a little bit confused about the fact that, during COVID, there were lenders that would let people do an complete online signing. Most of them have backed away from that. There are a couple of them that still do, but most of them have kind of backed away from that now that the COVID restrictions are off. So we have a lot of people that they will think that, because they're loan officers, thinking back to, several years ago when, you could do that, and haven't had the question really come up since then. And now they're like, yeah, we can absolutely do that. And then they end up looping back to their underwriting, and their underwriting says, no, we can't do that. They have to sign in person. We can't have that. So if you're title company person, there's another one that's actually finally closing tomorrow. It was supposed to close. It was actually scheduled. Purchase agreement date was tomorrow. They started the whole thing last week, Monday. Can we close last Monday? And I said, the lender doesn't seem like they're ready. Loan officer says the lender's ready. I'm like, but I'm working with the closer because the lender also has a closer. I'm the closer for your people. The lender has their own closer that does the paperwork on their side. And I'm like, I'm going back and forth with the closer, and it doesn't seem like they're ready. No, everything's great. Everything's great. My guy's couch surfing because he didn't keep his apartment long enough because they were going to be able to close. And I'm like, I think we need to, set an expectation here. I don't know that this is going to happen. He may need to make a different accommodation. Well, then it moved to Wednesday, and I'm like, I still think that it seems like it was HOA. They had to get the certification. It was a whole thing. Still think that we should give the buyer and the sellers the expectation that it's going to close on the purchase agreement date of the 10th. And then it was going to close last Friday. I'm like, I still don't think that they're ready. I don't think we should get people excited. We should maybe. And I reached out to the actual processor for the lender, and I said, do you think it would be better if we just said, okay, PA date is the 10th. Let's just go with the 10th. It's on or before, but on the 10th, let's just go with the 10th. She finally came back to me at the end of the day on Friday and said, yeah, we should just push this to the 10th. But now the expectation, it's not a good, it's not a good feeling for anybody because they've all thought that it was going to close. It was going to close. It was going to close. So I guess the takeaway for that is if your title person is kind of telling you, maybe we should do something else. Maybe we should set a different expectation. That is something that you should really consider and find out why your title company person is saying that. And then, maybe rethink and retool around that idea. Because once again, everybody wants to close early, and we all understand that. And as title people, we want them to close early. We want everybody to be happy. We want to make sure that it's a good process for everybody. And if they want to get out or, out of the house early, the sellers do, or the buyers want to get in, we would love to make that happen. And most of us will jump through every hoop we can to make that happen. But if we're like going, we should pump the brakes here. That's something that I think that other influences will jump in there, but we are the curator of all of the information. Like the loan officers don't have the information about the sellers. We do. We have to. So, we in the transaction, you've got listing agents, you've got sellers, you've got someone who's closing for the seller, you've got selling agent, you've got buyers, you've probably got a lender. And then you have the county recorder's office as well, because that's what comes up on our title commitment. That's what we have to go by. So all of those forces are involved in this process, and the hub of all of that information and the assembling of all of that information is your title person. So your title person may have information that like your loan officer doesn't have, may have information that like the listing agent doesn't have, or you as the selling agent, you might not know that all of a sudden your seller has a $67,000 HUD mortgage, that all of that information, we are the hub of the information. So just, the heads up that if your title person says, hey, you know, we should maybe make a different plan here, set a different expectation, because that's ultimately what we need to do. I think this industry, sometimes we don't spend enough time setting the expectation so that everything's going to go smoothly, right? You get caught up in the willy-nilliness of it, and that people want to do this, people want to do that. Sometimes you need to take a step back and go, no, this will not be a good result. The good result is for us to just give a little time for things to get worked out, and not try to be running in and doing a closing at, people sitting in the lobby from noon until 4:30 because the lender can't retool that fast, or the seller doesn't have all their stuff, or, that's not a good result, right? And we want good results, because this is a business of referrals. And, nobody wants to be the person that it's like, oh, it's just like willy-nilly, and, they can't get things organized. And it's not necessarily you, but it's all because you're the face. It all eventually comes back, and it's going to be attached to you, right? If it's not a good result. So anyway, that is my spiel today about let's not have negative negative consequences. If anybody has any like random title questions or anything that I was talking about, wants to throw anything out, please feel free to dive right in.
Because we would love to hear about some of the things that you guys are experiencing as well. What are
Absolutely.
some of maybe the issues that you've been dealing with, or what is a frequent kind of transaction that kind of, is it trust related or bankruptcy related, or something specific to a life change kind of thing?
Or a frequent trigger that you have with title companies, if there's something that you're like, okay, my title company is doing this, like, why are they doing this, or what are they doing, or triggers, that things that you guys would like to see us do, or think we do too much of, or don't do enough of, because that's the kind of feedback that would be great from you guys. I think we're going to do some subsequent calls here. I think the next one, I don't remember when it is, but that one might be a whole quick claim shenanigan.
Because we also have the FinCEN meeting also as one of the topics,
Yeah.
I believe. That'll be very
Yeah.
informative.
Yeah, that FinCEN, it is coming. There was talk that it was going to get nixed, but it is. It's financial crimes enforcement, and it is going to happen. It is going to start December 1st, as of what they've got right now. That is a big deal. That is a big deal, and we are having meetings every single week about it on the title company side here, to try to figure out what the ramifications are going to be for buyers and sellers and all of that stuff on that. So,
And it's related to cash transactions. Can you just, in a nutshell, just give like a 1-minute scenario on so for people that are not familiar with it?
well, the biggest thing about it is that it's to catch people laundering money by buying and selling real estate. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. And they have caught a bunch of people in this. It's not a new thing. Like, financial crimes enforcement isn't a new thing, but the process that they're doing is a new thing, where cash purchases, if there's a lender involved, the lender has pretty much all of the information, but like cash purchases, people transferring into trusts or into LLCs, or transferring from an LLC into a trust or whatever, are going to have to provide all sorts of information about themselves, and all sorts of information about the trust itself, like who. And LLCs sees it's a bit of a bigger deal, because in an LLC, it's going to be not only do they have to have the information about the LLC, they have to have all the information about all of the principals of the LLC that are beneficiaries of this transfer. So I know that it's the questionnaire on it is like close to 100 questions or something. It's that have to be filled out for all of these transactions. It's such a big deal that Stewart is thinking of perhaps having just an entire team that does this, because the financial penalties are very, very high. If you miss by a day reporting it, it has to be reported right away. If you miss by a day, it's a $1,300 or $1,400 penalty. If you continuously miss, it's like a $300,000 penalty. If they think that you're doing it on purpose because you're not doing it at all, you could go to jail as the title company person, because it's a whole hierarchy of who is supposed to report it. But if there's a title company involved, basically it all rolls down to the title company. The people that disperse the money are the people that are going to be responsible to report the information on who's giving the money and where did the money come from and all that stuff. So yeah, it's generally speaking, it's probably going to be a title company thing, unless it's an internal transfer, like into an LLC, or that's not a monetary transfer, and that's a whole other set of questions. But it's a fairly large onerous process for every single file. So Stewart is thinking that they're probably going to have just like an entire team that will do that. It won't be us at the level here. It will go, once these files close, it will go to their main team who will take care of it. And I think they're actually even going to offer that to anybody that's underwritten by Stewart as well. So if you have title companies that you deal with that are underwritten by Stewart, they probably will be able to use that as well, which will streamline the process for that title company that you're using, which hopefully would be me and just be regular Stewart. But it is going to be a big deal. So that'll be a whole other thing. But once we have a little bit more information, we'll do probably a bigger deal on that. But quitclaim deeds, Todd deeds, I think that might be the next one that we do, unless anyone has a better idea, something else that they would prefer to have a little bit more information on, that they would like clarification on. And we could also do one that's just ask the title company person. If y'all have a bunch of questions, you can certainly assemble those questions, and we could just do a question and answer session as well.
I had a really successful lender meeting with a credit union back in almost a year ago. It was a Zoom, and it was just one specific credit union. And we had about 50 people on the call. Jules was not associated with this one. It was a different escrow officer, but it was an escrow officer from Stewart, myself, and about 50 different people from that credit union. And they all consisted of anywhere from processors to closers to loan officers to underwriters at that credit union. And the purpose of the meeting was for you to develop like 10 questions roughly that are very important to you to get the correct answer, and for us to address each one by one. And we had so many positive comments after that meeting. They were like, thank you. You finally got to our question. It's been haunting us forever, because, sometimes in companies internally we'll say, yes, you can do that. No, you can't. Right. And it was just really nice for everybody to hear clearly the steps involved with each one of their 10 questions. So if you ever want to design your own class for us, and you would like to have us address specific questions, we're more than happy to do that too, like Jules mentioned. So we're just happy and lucky to be able to get your time like this, because we know you're very busy. So thank you.
Absolutely. And next time you'll be able to see me with my finger quotes and everything I'm doing, because I talk with my hands. If you've ever been on one of these with me, you know that I talk with my hands. They're all over the place. So yeah, there seems to be a shenanigan. But
thanks to Jeff for being open to working with Jules to get it fixed. But we just let her go.
Yeah, I think I was afraid it would mess up what I had going on, which is actually way better than I had at first. So
yeah,
I'll figure that out though, Jeff. I will follow the instructions you gave me and figure it out on the back end, and then next time it will be all good.
Yeah, no worries. You just have to type settings into the bottom window there in the search screen, and that will set you on your way. Google search that thing I told you, and it'll give you all the steps. And it's just click a few buttons after you type the one thing.
Perfect.
All right, thanks. Thank you both for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope that you got something out of it, got some information that's helpful to you.
Thank you for the great presentation, and we'll be in touch with you guys soon.
All right. Well, thank you and have a
Always.
super
Thanks,
week.
Jules. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just posted in the chat, if you want to take a picture of it with your phone, the upcoming huddle. Sorry about that first line there, but we do have MLS training on September 16th. Then we have Lofty training on September 23rd. We have Armadillo, which is home warranties that you can offer to your all of your clients if they buy a home. We also have our PR presentation with Katie on October 7th, Reminder Media on October 14th, and then we do have a lunch and learn at Steward Title on October 21st. Or is it? No, it's the 23rd. So there is no huddle on October 21st. And then we don't have one on the last Tuesday of the month. So that's what's coming up in the next couple of months. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me to ask anyone in National Realty Guild, or anybody, if you want me to ask Randy a question for you, I can do that.
Kathy, the information which you have sent on chat, you would be emailing them too, right?
Can you say that again?
The chat information, would you be emailing them?
The
The information which you have put on the chat.
on the tag? Oh yeah, they'll be out. You know, you'll be invited to every single one of those too.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right. Any other questions for me?
So I just wanted to be sure that you were going to send out a calendar to what you just said there.
We'll put it on Facebook. Or if you're on
On
our
Facebook?
page, you'll
Okay.
definitely see what's coming up. You know, this Lofty, everybody, if you're not a member of Lofty, Randy really has a good deal for you guys. Lofty is a really great site that if you don't have a place to organize your clients, reach out to them like on holidays to say Happy Thanksgiving. Hey, I'm still around. You can have a website on Lofty. You can get leads for as little as $6 a lead. And normally it's $200 a month for a real estate agent to be a part of Lofty. Randy bought 2,000 seats. So he's offering it to you people in National Realty Guild for only $35 a month. And you can try it for 30 days for free. So if you're not using that, I really recommend looking into it. If you're not sure how to learn more about it, just go to lofty.com, but don't sign up there. You want to let me know or Randy know that you want to get a seat in Lofty. And you can, like I said, try it out for free to begin with. And we are having that training coming up on, oh, now I can't see it, the 20, I think it's the 23rd of September. And Shelly is awesome. She is, I mean, she's become my best friend. I mean, her and I talk every week, and she's teaching me more and more about Lofty. But it is a really great benefit for you people in National Realty Guild that Randy has for you if you want it. Okay, if you want that home warranty also for any of your clients, if you go to nrg100.com, there's a place to sign up so that you can offer the home warranty for your clients too. And it's a really good deal. I mean, it covers all of their appliances and more for a very low cost every single month. So it's something you should be talking to your new home buyers about. Any other questions for me? Sorry, I got on at 10:01, but you guys had already started. So I was, every single Tuesday I have my grandson and he's 3 years old. So I try to make this work, but it's not a day that I normally work for the company, but I try to get onto these huddles. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you all have a great week and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.